States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you. We wish Peter a happy birthday, even though it was yesterday. We're not going to sing, though, because we don't want to expel too much into here. Thank you very much for your participation here this evening. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Emergency exits are located on the side and the back of the auditorium. You can go out the back of the auditorium, go to your left, and exit the building quickly. On the stage, there's a door at the back right that leads outside. Smoking is not permitted in any school building nor on school property. Restrooms are down the hallway to the right as you exit the auditorium. Either the faculty or student restrooms are available. Please silence your phones unless you're expecting an important call, as I didn't do the other night. Introductions. I'd like to have everybody on stage introduce themselves at this time. Start over here with Scott.
Yes, Scott Butcher, Town Administrator.
David Lane, Selectman.
John Beazer, Selectman.
Sean Talbot, Selectman.
Jeff McCabe, Finance Advisory Committee.
Debbie Deaton, Town Clerk.
Also serving on the Advisory Budget Committee were Mark Fortier and Jack Lowe. And just a note, we are looking for two people to serve on that committee this coming fall. So if you're interested, please contact me or contact Scott to let us know you're interested. Supervisors of the checklist, Ms. Deb Hardy and Mrs. Darrell Diamond Kumpf, are seated outside the room checking people in. And I want to thank and acknowledge the help of the police and fire departments, the town boards, the election officials, the school officials, the custodial staff here at the high school for their efforts. Also in particular, Tech Director Matt Balloon, Audiovisual Specialist Mr. David Franz, SAU Facilities Director Craig Reynolds, and the scenic students for setting up today. So we'll give a quick round of applause. If you're allowed in class, that's Sophia, but not cheer. Okay, now to the business at hand. Anyone living in New Ipswich who is a registered voter to vote in today's session must check in with the supervisors of the checklist outside the rear of the auditorium to your left. Once checked in, each voter doesn't look like they're wearing colored dots, so that's okay. There's no registrations allowed today, however. but you can register to vote prior to the March 9th election by seeing the town clerk prior to the election. At the town meeting in 1997, the town of New Ipswich adopted SB2, which is the standardized official ballot referendum system. Today we will be discussing and voting on items on the town warrant as directed by the SB2 system. The purpose of the warrant is to warn or place the subject matter before the voters. Senate Bill 2, by allowing us to make amendments to the warrant, enables a similar but not exact range of possible amendments that voters enjoyed under the prior town meeting system. Today, we will not be adopting any new articles. The town warrant signed by the Select Board may be placed on the official ballot for the final vote on March 9th, with no further action required by this meeting. However, this being the first session of the town meeting, we will be explaining, discussing, debating, and potentially amending warrant articles at the pleasure of the meeting. Voting on the articles in the official ballot will take place on Tuesday, March 9th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the Scenic Regional High School Gymnasium. Please enter at the back of the building to come into the gymnasium. This evening, we will be using general parliamentary rules to run the meeting, as has been done in prior years. Copies of these rules are posted on the walls, and there are also handouts of those for you today. Are there any questions regarding the rules of the meeting? I'll entertain a motion to accept the rules of the meeting.
Motion to accept the rules.
Jim Coffey. Second by David Lage. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. It's a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare. I encourage all interested voters to speak. There is a single microphone tonight down in the center of the auditorium. Please space yourselves up and line up at the microphone if you wish to speak. When acknowledged by the moderator, please state your name the first time speaking on each article, and this so the town clerk can properly record this meeting. Please direct your discussion through the moderator and not to other voters. Article 1, election of officers. To choose the following necessary town officials for the year or years ensuing. Board of Selectmen, 1 person, 3 years. Board of Assessors, 1 person, 3 years. Cemetery Trustees, 1 person, 3 years. Planning Board, 2 persons, 3 years. Supervisor of the Checklist, 1 person, 6 years. Treasurer, 1 person, 3 years. Trustee of the Trust Funds, 1 person, 3 years. Trustee of the Trust Funds, 1 person, 1 year. Town Clerk, Tax Collector, 1 person, 3 years. This article is not amendable. Also for your information, candidates' night will be February 23rd at 6 p.m. And I imagine we'll set that up as a Zoom call for candidates. Article 2. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session, for purposes set forth therein totaling $2,710,452. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $2,510,562, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold 1 special meeting in accordance with RSA 40, Section 13, subsections Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any presentation? Okay. I'll recognize David Lage at this time.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. First of all, I'd like to thank all the department heads, the Finance Advisory Committee, and all those who participated in meeting with Board of Selectmen and developing the budget that we're going to be presenting this evening for 2021. On this slide and on the next slide, you'll see where we were in 2020 and what we are proposing in 2021. Overall, it's just under an 8% budget increase, primarily because of adjustments that we've made in different departments for salary. Retirement was a big item that the town now has to absorb with the employees and with the police. It's always been that the state participates in paying a portion of that retirement. The state has now rescinded on that, and we've seen an increase from the retirement board between what we call the Group 1 employees. The town went from an 11% participation to 14%, which is going to be effective July 1st, and on the police it went from 28 to 30, just under 34. So that was one of the increases, along with trying to be competitive and salaries for the police officers. Right now, we've just lost 2 police officers, of which we are having a very difficult time in attracting either new candidates to put through the academy or current police officers. One of the major items that we're pointing out here is on the street lighting. For those of you that may not have realized that 2 years ago we received what was called unanticipated aid from the state. And the board at that time voted to have our street lights upgraded, and they've all been changed out now with LED lighting, and we're looking at a 2-year payback on that. So it was, plus the town received a generous rebate from Eversource. So we're looking at a significant reduction in what we're paying right now. So if there are any questions on the budget, any items that you may see, please feel free to ask.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move to Article 3.
There's one other slide here that someone at the initial budget hearing had asked us to provide 2 slides. One here is going to be what our revenues are that the town has received in 2020 and what we're anticipating in 2021, which will show a slight increase in 20 to 21. This slide here just goes to show, in comparison with all of the towns that surround New Ipswich in the area, how we compare on a town tax rate compared to those towns. And as you'll see, New Ipswich is probably the lowest out of everyone. I think we, for a small town, we're very frugal, and this is a demonstration of that.
Any further discussion? Any questions? I think as you can see from those slides, please keep buying new cars and registering new vehicles. That's more than a third of the revenue that the town spends on an annual basis. All right, Article 3, Road Projects Block Grant. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $150,000 for maintenance, construction, and reconstruction of New Ipswich roads, to be offset by New Hampshire Department of Transportation block grant. No amount to be raised through taxation. Recommended by Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Any discussion on this article? Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 to reconstruct and pave New Ipswich roads. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation for a period of 5 years, terminating on December 31st, 2025, or when the project is completed, whichever comes sooner, in accordance with RSA 32.7, Section 6. These funds will be prioritized for spending by the Department Director of Public Works and Highways and Road Committee recommendations. The Road Committee shall be comprised of 2 members of the Planning Board, the DPW Director, and 2 townspeople at large members with an understanding of road maintenance and paving. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to reconstruct and pave New Ipswich roads. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation for a period of 5 years, terminating on December 31st, 2025, or when the project is completed, whichever comes sooner, in accordance with RSA 32, Section 7, subsection 6. These funds will be prioritized for spending by the Director of Public Works and Highways and Road Committee recommendations. The Road Committee shall be comprised of 2 members of the Planning Board, the DPW Director, and 2 townspeople, at-large members with an understanding of road maintenance and paving. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion?
Just to inform the voters, the roads that we're looking to do next year, with recommendations from the Road Committee, finish top coating Hubbard Pond, reconstruct Collins Road from Page Hill Road to Perry Road, base the entire length, reconstruct and base coat Stoll Road from Temple Road to Cedar Ridge, reconstruct Mountain View with a base coat, and if funds are available, which right now I believe with the estimates we were given from Mr. Goey, we would then do Malthouse Road as well. So those are our 5 priorities for next year.
Question? D. Daly?
Dee, can you come up so people online can hear you?
Sure.
Yes, we are attempting to Zoom tonight using the laptop
Yep.
on stage.
D. Daly from Arrowhead Lane. Can you just address, is the portion of Collins Road to be paved, and all the paved, any road that would be newly paved, is that all Class 5 only?
The only roads we're allowed to pave are Class 5 roads. We cannot pave a Class 6 road.
Okay, so isn't there a portion of Collins that is not Class 5?
No, that portion of Collins Road that goes from Page Hill Road to Collins Road where the turnaround is was laid out back in 2007. And it is a Class 5 road, it's just really not passable.
So we are going to pave a non-passable road?
That road's going to get reconstructed upon the, how do I want to say it? Both fire, police have indicated having a means to access Collins Road other than Perry Road is very important. And that is why that was laid out back in 2007, and it has just sat idle, not being done. But that will be a passable road.
Any additional questions on Article 5? Article 6, fund capital reserves and expendable trusts. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $258,500 to be contributed to previously established capital reserve and expendable trust funds as follows. Highway Department Expendable Capital Reserve Fund, $75,000. Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund, $50,000. Pool Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, $6,000. Parks and Recreation Capital Reserve Fund, $2,500. Police Department Expendable Capital Reserve Fund, $40,000. Revaluation Capital Reserve Fund, $30,000. Building Maintenance Expendable Trust, $35,000. Fire Protection Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, $20,000. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion on this article?
I'd like to point out this slide here was the slide requested by an attending resident at the budget hearing, requesting what is in those funds currently. And this is a demonstration of what those funds are.
Meredith Lund, New Ipswich.
Thank you.
The firefighter safety is an expendable trust fund capital reserve, the $20,000. It was lowered last year, it changed to an expendable trust 2 years ago. It reflects in the thing that it's a capital reserve, it's not.
Okay, so we'll have to make an adjustment if the trustee of the trust funds agree, I guess. Is that the right place to look, Scott?
I believe you can have a capital reserve fund, but the town needs to vote whether it is, how it can be expended, whether the authority is given to the Board of Selectmen or whether it needs to be done by legislative vote, meaning during the voting.
The vote went to the voters a couple of years, I think it was 2 years ago, that it was changed to an expendable trust that could be expended without the vote of the town.
No, I agree with that. All I'm saying is that it can still be considered a capital reserve account, expendable, and it gives the authority who has to expend it.
I'm just clarifying because it says, it doesn't say expendable anywhere there, so I'm just making sure that that is correct.
Well, for example, neither does it say it for the pool maintenance, which is an expendable trust with the selectmen.
Just looking for clarification.
So Meredith, on the trust fund sheet, it'll show like how everything's listed, and I just went off of like how it was notated on there. But
Okay.
we'll check into that.
Yeah, it was a vote a couple of years
Okay.
ago. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on Article 6? Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 to support the New Ipswich Library. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 2-1. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 8, ambulance service. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $98,066 for contracted licensed ambulance service, emergency services, and support. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 9, regional health services. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,550 for the purpose of funding the following regional health services that assist New Ipswich residents. Milford Regional Counseling, $250. Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention, $500. Meals on Wheels, $1,275. Court-appointed special advocates for children, also known as CASA, $500. 100 Nights Shelter, $500. St. Vincent de Paul, $3,000. The River Center, $500. Granite State Children's Alliance, $275. Crooked Valley Transportation Company, $500. Monadnock Family Services, $250. Home Health Care, Hospice, and Community Services, $600. The American Red Cross, $400. Harbor Care, $1,000. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion on this article? I'm going to step out of line and ask, what is Harbor Care that's new this year?
Harbor Care is also a, believe that one is substance abuse counseling, as well as I think they also do some inpatient and housing. But I believe that one is the, if I remember right, I apologize, I don't have my notes in front of me, I believe that one is substance abuse.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion or any questions? Article 10, property revaluation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,440 for the purpose of funding year 2 of our 5-year cyclical revaluation and authorize the withdrawal of $20,440 from the revaluation fund created for that purpose. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3-0. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 11, household hazardous waste. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $4,640 to participate in the City of Keens Household Hazardous Waste Program? Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 2-1. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 12, sale of old highway garage. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Selectmen to sell the building and property known as the old highway garage located at 497 Turnpike Road. Recommended by the Selectmen, 3-0. Is there any discussion or explanation?
Yes, Tim Jones, 55 Old Tenny Road. I'll address this to David. David, is this the one next to the sand pit up there on Turnpike?
It is. It's the one right after Tricknick Road.
I should declare I have a vested interest in that I'm an abutter to that land, or at least a review of it. How many acres is it?
I can't tell you factually, but it's not much. Pretty much what you see there is the property. Matter of fact, the town previously had even infringed on the adjacent property, and then they gave us some...
And it's zoned commercial?
There is no zone commercial in the town of New Ipswich. Everything in New Ipswich is residential districts. The town has never adopted a commercial zone. So everything is by special exception. And the reason why we have that on the warrant this year is part of that unanticipated funding we received in 19 and the anticipated funding that the town received in 20. Portion of that also went to constructing a new salt shed. Well, it will be going to that. It's been contracted out. We're waiting for that to proceed. And that's going to be located at the Highway Department at its current location.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Any further discussion? Article 13, Valley Road acceptance. See if the town will vote to accept Valley Road, a distance of 1,225 feet, approximately a quarter mile, and 24 feet wide, more or less, is a public highway authorized by RSA 674, section 40-A. This article is contingent upon the completion of Articles B:9B through B:9D, as laid out in the subdivision regulations of the town of New Ipswich, New Hampshire, adopted March 6, 1986. And if the Board of Selectmen do not accept the road as a public highway by petition prior to such town voting date set March 9, 2021, submitted by petition, majority vote required. Not recommended by the Selectmen, 1 to 2. Is there any discussion on this article? Mr. Coffey, please come forward.
I can't move the board. I love the old
That'll probably be the next technology leap. Everybody has a microphone in their own seat.
Didn't stick to the code. I actually have a question. My name is James Coffey. I live on Central Road. I noticed that this is 24 feet wide. And my understanding is that most of new roads in the town are 50 feet wide. The right of way of the road. This looks like the town would only be accepting the pavement of the shoulders. So I think there ought to be some clarification on that. David, I'm looking at you.
And I'm turning on my microphone. That petition was submitted, the article was submitted by petition. As far as the clarification of what's going to be accepted, and you're correct, is most of the roads are 24 feet, although I believe where this was a newer subdivision, the planning board would have required a 50-foot right-of-way for the road width, but that would be something that we'll need to look at.
Okay, so my question is, if this article was passed, I'm not speaking for or against it, but if the article was passed, the selectmen could do a layout also, if you have the power to lay out roads, that you could lay it out at 50.
Okay.
So I was just kind of curious on my part because of the width.
Did you look into that you know that the planning board did not require a 50-foot right-of-way, or is this just a word of advice?
I'm just talking about what I've seen in the past as being normal. I would say normal, usual. I found my mistake.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this article?
There's a question online. What would the additional cost be to the town to maintain that property?
Mr. Govey, I think that's up your alley.
That's why I'm looking at you.
Peter, would you go up to the microphone so they can hear you, please?
Once you formulate your thoughts.
As of right now, most of the maintenance will be just for winter maintenance, plowing, salt and sanding. The road will just repaved, so there won't be any other cost until probably 10 years down the road.
That was my initial answer, and they wanted it a little, do you have a guesstimate about what that would cost to winter maintenance?
Depends on Mother Nature. If we don't get any snow, we won't have any cost for it either, but probably looking, labor-wise, it's only going to take the driver probably 15 minutes to plow it, not even a ton of salt. So you're probably looking to save probably a couple $100 a storm.
Okay. Thank you, Pete. So the answer to Michelle is maybe a couple $100 per storm. But again, if we don't get any storms, there's no cost.
Any further discussion on Article 13? Article 14, tax maps update. Shall the town vote to appropriate the sum of $148,500 for the purpose of recompiling and updating New Ipswich tax maps, reviewing every parcel and ensuring it is correctly shown on the town tax map, and to raise $148,500 as follows: $74,250 to be provided by the Conservation Fund, as already approved by the Conservation Commission. $37,125 from the undesignated fund balance as of December 31st, 2020, and $37,125 from general taxation. And furthermore, to establish an oversight committee consisting of 3 members to fully manage the project with the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and Board of Assessors, each appointing 1 member, and the committee shall appoint a clerk. This shall be a non-lapsing article for a period of 4 years until December 31st, 2024, or sooner when the project is completed. Submitted by petition, majority vote required. Not recommended by the Selectmen, 1 to 2. Recommended by the Budget Advisory Committee, 3 to 0. Is there any discussion on this article? Mr. Coffey.
I am one of the petitioners, and for better or worse, I am the author of the petition. So first of all, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Most of the petitioners are members of the 3 boards who use the tax maps. One of our problems is the maps we have were created a long time ago using a completely different technology. And so what happens is, if I look at my own property, the road I live on goes through my garage. I own it across the street, it makes no sense. We don't fit on a true map of the town. The price we have on here is probably the outer limit of what it would cost, and it was based on pulling every current deed for every property and making it fit. And going through and make sure that the names are correct. The committee is to make sure that the 3 boards that have the greatest interest in it all get out of the project what they want. And the price is based on a preliminary estimate we got, but there's no final contract that's been chosen, and that will be done by the committee and the boards, and obviously in concert with the selectmen and controllers. So I think this would be very helpful for everybody to get our maps straightened out. One of the best examples would be if you have a piece of property and you have a floodplain in it, a 100-year floodplain. If the property is shifted, you may not see the floodplain. It may look like it's on the neighbor's property, but it's really on yours. So we've had people get into trouble when they do the overlays. So we get overlays from the state of New Hampshire, and our own Conservation Commission has overlays that we can bring into this. So this is a significant investment, but once it's done, the cost to maintain this is actually a little bit less than the cost to maintain what we have now. And this would be readily available at a very small cost, about $1,500 or $2,500 a year. The whole collection of maps would be available online to the public. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Mr. Coffey, the first thing that I do want to correct you on is, I believe during that presentation, the gentleman indicated that the annual maintenance cost would be approximately $8,000, and we currently budget for $2,500. So we are having it is an increase. It's not less than, but it's.
Well, last time I looked, it was like a couple $100 less, but it's not like we're gonna have to spend 10 grand a year to maintain something we spend 2,500 on today.
We're going to be spending 8,000, I think is what he had said, on a budget that we currently have at 2,500.
I don't think so, but we can take a look at that.
Okay.
May I speak to that? What Tim Fountain said was there's an $8,000 fee to, like a startup fee type of thing, but they absorb that if we sign the contract for the whole thing. So the annual maintenance on it is only $2,300, I believe it was. It was like $200 less than we pay now.
I'm indicating on the notes that I took at that meeting, not from memory. What he stated is what I wrote, so.
Right. And but he also mentioned that they waived that $8,000.
Any other questions? I'll ask one. So Jim, since funding's proposed to come from multiple sources, if it costs $111,000, where do you draw the money from?
In other words, if the cost is less,
Yes.
it probably works the same way. Let's say it costs $111,000. I mean, you know, some people have questions about the Conservation Commission even being able to release funds for something like this, but it states very clearly in the statute that they can expend money on brochures and maps. So we're in that range. It'll be something to be worked out by the committee and the select.
And that's the other comment I'd like to make, Mr. Buffy, is that the statute is referring to budget money that the Conservation Commission has. This is coming out of the fund that when a property owner takes a piece of property that is in current use, out of current use to develop it, there's a penalty. And I don't know if anyone noticed on the slide previously, I think in 2020 there was approximately $36,000 or so in penalties. And that went into a fund. And I remember when that was brought before the voters, that money was supposed to be expended on preserving land, purchasing land to keep in conservation. I know as a resident, I was disheartened to hear that it was being proposed to take this money out and expend it on nothing more than a software establishment of maps versus conserving the property that we have in town, which is pretty much why most of us are here, because of that rural property.
Some of the work that would be done on this would be to make the maps that the Conservation Commission has developed, to make them compatible with the town's tax map and other maps that are used as overlays. In other words, to come up with a common denominator so that all these things fit together. There are other legal opinions that counter yours. And the only way to find out is to pass the article and then take a look at it.
And I'm not looking for legal or whatever. In my heart, my mind, yes, it is a good benefit for the boards in town. When I look at it, and I was one of the ones that didn't vote for it, when I look at it for each individual resident, how many of them would be using it, I couldn't come to terms to say, yes, it's a worthwhile expenditure. And that's the only reason. Technology, anytime you can gain on technology, it's a great thing. But when you look at what we forego in this town in order to keep low tax, low budgets, it was a hard decision to make to justify that cost.
The cost per taxpayer would be approximately a one-time charge. It would even out to a one-time charge of $19.25. It's 7 cents per thousand per taxpayer. So if, I could just give you my $20 bill right now, and that would be my portion. And you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be sarcastic, I'm just letting you know what the cost to the taxpayer would be.
Any further discussion? Please come forward. Jim took so far, you might have to respond.
Pete Daly again, one of the things that I find interesting about this article is that it's being potentially couched as a board benefit, something that would help the boards. And I agree with you that it would help the boards. But I also think it helps build good neighbors and good decision-making by homeowners. People have put things in conservation land that they didn't know was conservation land, wetlands, not knowing it was wetlands. Neighbors have discussions every day and think they own the same part of a piece of property, and/or where do they put their fences, or where are the slopes. And so if people are thinking about building a barn, a garage, an addition, or what have you, or if they are having those discussions with neighbors about, hey, I want to get a dock into the water, and they're pointing at land their neighbor thinks is their property, that having this means they don't have to invest in as much legal analysis, engineering, and things like that, because everybody frames the same thing pretty much in the same way when it's accurate. So to me, that's the other benefit of this, is that most of us have discussions with our neighbors that are very well intended, and having a source that can be relied upon that isn't a half an acre or even a full property off will make those discussions easier as a town, and let's have some of those discussions a lot easier and a lot freer. So to me, will everybody in town probably use this at some point in time? It's conceivable. Even if only half of us use it, and I have to pay $20 and I don't get that benefit, somebody else is going to spend a whole lot more in engineering fees than this will ever cost us on a per household basis. And that's why I can see this being a benefit beyond just the rules.
I'd like to respond to that because during that presentation that they did, in no way is this process going to eliminate the need for a person to have surveyed property. When you have a discussion about where your fence is going to go, what property you own, this cartograph does not confirm that and waive the necessity to have a surveyed piece of property.
Is there any further discussion on Article 14? Article 15, discontinuation of property. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to discontinue, pursuant to RSA 231, Section 43, 0.029 acres, part of an old right-of-way, adjacent to New Hampshire Route 124, is shown on the plan attached hereto as Exhibit A, and made part hereof, submitted by petition. Majority vote required, recommended by the selectmen, 3-0. I'm sorry, there's no map.
Here, Southwell? No, I'd like to amend and change the wording on this article. It'll read as, to see if the registered voters of the town of Northwich will vote to discontinue as a public highway the following portions of Old Turnpike Road prior to its relocation in 1958, approximately 0.29 acres of land abutting the northerly boundary of the existing Route 124 Turnpike Road, and southerly boundary of tax map lot number 1196, beginning at the easterly boundary line of tax map number 1199 at the Old Turnpike Road, and proceeding approximately 340 feet easterly to that portion of Old Turnpike Road which was abandoned by the town in 1959, and to authorize the town of Northwich to convey an isolated portion of the right-of-way to be abandoned. Said portion consisting of approximately 0.04 acres to primary court.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Name?
Grant Settle.
Okay? Go ahead, Dave.
For those of you that are wondering what this is and where it is adjacent to the old highway garage, a piece of property that at one point in time, Turnpike Road went over that property. When the road was relocated to the current highway location, the way New Hampshire law is the abutters of the road will then own the property to the center line of that road. Well, now that Turnpike Road got shifted, there's a little wedge of land there that when we had the highway garage, the fire station, technically we own that little strip of road. If you face the old highway garage, we're referring to the property to the right of it. And there's other abutters that the property owner needs to deal with and the state, but they're asking regarding the portion that belongs to the town. And we don't see that there'd be any benefit to the town.
So I'll need a copy of that
Yes.
amendment, and, Brad?
Yeah.
So, you can both sign off on that, that'd be great. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this article? I'll read it again, and then we'll vote on it. To see if the registered voters of the town of New Ipswich will vote to discontinue as a public highway pursuant to RSA 231, Section 43, the following portion of Old Turnpike Road prior to its relocation in 1958, approximately 0.29 acres of land abutting the northerly boundary of the existing Route 124, also known as Turnpike Road, right-of-way, and the southerly boundary of tax map lot number 11/96, beginning at the easterly boundary of the line of tax map lot number 1199 and the old Turnpike Road, and proceeding approximately 340 feet easterly to that portion of the old Turnpike Road which was abandoned by the town in 1959, and to authorize the town of New Ipswich to convey an isolated portion of the right-of-way to be abandoned, said portion consisting of approximately 0.04 acres to Prime Roofing Corporation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That's a vote in the affirmative. Thank you. Remember, for all those positions and articles, the voting for the positions and the articles we've just gone through will be held on March 9th here in the rear of the high school in the gymnasium from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Mr. Coffey adjourn. Who's second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.